Hello and welcome to the Data Engineering Podcast, the show about modern data management. Introducing RudderStack Profiles. RudderStack Profiles takes the SAS guesswork and SQL grunt work out of building complete customer profiles so you can quickly ship actionable, enriched data to every downstream team. You specify the customer traits, then Profiles runs the joins and computations for you to create complete customer profiles. Get all of the details and try the new product today at dataengineeringpodcast.com/RudderStack. You shouldn't have to throw away the database to build with fast-changing data. You should be able to keep the familiarity of SQL and the proven architecture of cloud warehouses, but swap the decades-old batch computation model for an efficient incremental engine to get complex queries that are always up to date. With Materialize, you can. It's the only true SQL streaming database built from the ground up to meet the needs of modern data products. Whether it's real-time dashboarding and analytics, personalization and segmentation, or automation and alerting, Materialize gives you the ability to work with fresh, correct, and scalable results, all on a familiar SQL interface. Go to dataengineeringpodcast.com/materialize today to get 2 weeks free. Your host is Tobias Macey, and today I'm interviewing Andrey Korchak about how to manage data in a fintech environment. So, Andrey, can you start by introducing yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me here. So my name is Andrey. I'm a chief technical officer in the fintech company Monite. We're working in fintech API space. So our company is it's like AWS services for those who want to create fintech applications. But instead of supplying our customers with low-level components like databases or cloud service, we basically provide them the building blocks like invoicing or accounting or payments engine. So instead of writing all the business logic, you can plug in all our APIs in, and they're good to go. That's me, and that's our product. So obviously, I'm a technical director, and I'm responsible for everything we're doing in our company. So taking care about data is part of my responsibilities. I'm not actively writing data processing pipelines anymore, or I'm not managing data storages and data warehouses directly, but I know quite well how everything works, and I'm responsible for all decisions we take.
And do you remember how you first got started working in data?
Sure. I have solid background in software engineering, almost 24 years since I started writing code. And my previous startup was an ed tech company, and we were doing natural language processing. Obviously, machine learning was involved, and I was doing data management, data processing, all these kind of things. Now I'm working in fintech space, and we're not machine learning heavy, but we still have to process customer data. We still have to train some algorithms, and obviously I'm involved into all those things.
And now getting into the fintech specifics and some of the challenges around data in that space, I'm wondering if you can just start by giving a bit of a summary of the ways that data is used in fintech and some of the particular challenges in that space pertaining to data.
Sure. So our company is working with small and medium businesses, and the space is a bit different from, say, private banking or investment banking. So my examples will be relevant only for SMEs, and we have few challenges. So challenge number one, we have to analyze and interpret quite a lot of financial documents. I'm talking about invoices or cancellation notes, purchase orders, receipts, contracts. So basically, in our case, we have to do OCR, we have to do pattern recognition, and other things related to document processing. Now, second thing, we have to do document categorization. So we have to be able to distinguish invoices from cancellation notes and purchase orders, and surprise, those documents look very similar to each other, and separating this files and these documents, it's indeed very hard task. And third thing, we have to deal with compliance, and in order to do this, we're doing fraud prevention, we do transaction monitoring, and other things that might be relevant to that topic. So these are main things we do in our company, data-related things we do in our company. Now, well, few words about the data sources we have. Obviously, we have financial operations, talking about bank transactions or card payments. This type of data is extremely well structured. Well, not extremely, but it's well structured. Yes, there are tiny differences like different data formats or different currency codes, but when you have a list of transactions made from the bank account, you can make pretty good guesses where to find transaction descriptions or card numbers, and that's not very challenging. Well, documents, financial documents coming from customers, and there are all kinds of documents, PDF files, photos, scans, or bank statements, receipts, and dealing with those docs is indeed very hard. Now, we have some data that is not directly relevant to financial transactions, but this data is very helpful when you're doing finance management. We're talking about CRM records or information from the marketing campaign about marketing budgets or customer support requests regarding some financial operations. And last source of information we're dealing with is internal data. We're talking about logs or conversations with our customers, streams of events generated by the users, and other internal things. This data is not visible to our customers, but it plays a critical role when we operate in our software and making business decisions.
In terms of the application of data in the business context for fintechs, I'm wondering what are some of the key capabilities that are powered by data in a fintech context and some of the complexities that are involved in being able to bring data to bear for those problems?
Sure. So transactions and all the financial operations, as I mentioned before, this data is well structured, so it's kind of easy to deal with financial records. There is no need in sophisticated algorithms or machine learning because we already have all the numbers in place, so we can just do the math over these records. So it's not complicated, but it's crucial to provide to our customers this basic functionality related to financial transactions. Document management, it's something that it's it's kind of hard to deal with this because, as I mentioned before, there are tons of different documents, and in the modern world, people still use invoices or contracts printed on paper, and it's extremely hard to deal with these records. Before you'll be able to do something with this documents, you have to scan them, you have to verify them, and you have to categorize these documents. This is called preparatory accounting, and it's extremely challenging area. Obviously, it's pretty exhausting to deal with all these documents because sometimes they come in from different channels from different countries. They may look different, and it's extremely annoying to categorize these documents to assign and to send those documents to correct department, to right departments. So that's what we're doing. We're processing all the flows, informations coming on paper via fax, via email, and we categorize, recognize these documents, and hand them to the right direction. And analytics, it's something that comes on top of transactional information and on top of documents. So we have to be able to calculate the cash flow. We have to be able to identify gaps in the cash flow. We have to do some forecasting and other things. So it's basically three major areas we're operating in: documents management, transactions management, and analytics.
I know that in the fintech sector, there are a lot of regulatory requirements. The risks of getting things wrong in the business are quite high because you can start to lose a lot of money very quickly. And also, any errors in the data or in the application of data can lead to a loss of trust in among the customers, which can also lead to a pretty substantial financial hit. And I'm wondering, what are some of the ways that those regulatory and trust issues factor into the ways that organizations think about the collection of an application of data?
So as a fintech company, we have to obtain ISO 27001 certificates. The certificates defining the way we are processing critical financial information. Well, not only financial, everything that is crucial for our customers, including scans of IDs, receipts, and transactions. All those things. In order to deal with all those things, we have to be ISO certified. By the law, when you obtain ISO certificate, you have to enforce some policies on engineers, on DevOps team, and all the managers. So the access to the data is restricted, and only a few approved and certified engineers inside of the company can have access to this, and a couple of DevOps engineers. Obviously, analysts and managers also can have the access to the data, but all the critical data fields, they masked and removed or anonymized. And we have some data protection policies, backup policies, disaster recovery policies. So basically we have policies for everywhere. We also have to make sure that we not only have those policies, but we're able to identify, let's say, data leakages or critical disasters happening in infrastructure. And we do practice and we do run some training exercises with engineers trying to simulate disasters or infrastructure cluster collapse and see what happens after. Obviously, we have backups for backups, and it's not because we want this, but because we must have backups even for backups. All the backups, they're encrypted and not accessible by third party companies. Even AWS administrators won't be able to get access to our data. So basically, all the cybersecurity, all best cybersecurity practices are in place. Also, we have multiple data centers, and we have separate cloud infrastructures there. So people from one data center cannot get access to the data we store in another data center. That's partially because we have to be compliant with GDPR and other regional regulations, but also it's yet another security measure, and we have to make hackers' life quite miserable if they will somehow get access to what we have. Also, we have to be very cautious when we choosing third-party providers. As a fintech company, we have to do background checks, and we have to go through the documentation, and we have to be very cautious when we choose our service providers. So they must be ISO 27001 certified, because otherwise we won't be able to maintain our certification. They have to be regulated by local laws and regulations. And also, when we're processing the data with third-party providers, we have to include some clauses into terms and conditions, because without written consent, we cannot do absolutely anything, and we have to inform our users that their data will be used by a third-party machine learning company that will be doing invoice processing. Basically, working in fintech forces you to sign and to maintain lots of contracts, agreements, even with your own employees, with DevOps team, with engineers. They cannot have access literally to anything unless they sign the contract, and that's pretty annoying. Basically, dealing with those things, definitely makes sense, but it slows business down, because before we can take any actions, we have to make sure that we're good on the legal side, and before we can start working on a new feature, or before we can sign a contract with new counterpart or vendor, our legal team have to review it, and it's basically just pretty annoying. Apart of that, we are not very different from other software companies. We just extremely heavily regulated, and we have backups for backups, because we have to make sure that we won't lose any customer data.
To that point of all of your service providers requiring ISO 27001 certification and the strict security requirements around the data and the ways that it's processed, how does that influence the typical build versus buy decision when you're figuring out what your architectural and system components are going to be? What are the different data flows that you're going to support?
Okay, that's an interesting question, because when you're working in fintech, you cannot build MVP. Well, yes, you definitely can build a software that does something for your customers, but at the same time, you have to be compliant and you have to follow all these laws, rules, and regulations. Means that you have to invest quite a lot of time into hiring and training people, into signing all these contracts and establishing all these data protection policies. It means that in order to get to fintech space, you have to pay quite a lot for entry ticket. Now, if you're a fintech company, you probably will try to buy as many components, APIs, and services as possible because they're usually cheaper than doing all these things in-house. If you're a seed stage company, you cannot afford to have a compliance officer or for DevOps engineer available 24/7. But you can pay 10, 15, 20,000 for that. And that sounds like a reasonable price comparing to alternatives. And alternatives is to hire everyone, to train that people, to find managers, to write product specs, to establish all this data regulation policies. So basically, even simple invoicing solution, if you want to build this in-house, might cost you a few million. And well, MVP of invoicing engine doesn't seem like an extremely sophisticated software, but it could be because of this laws, rules, and regulations. So if you're an early stage company and you want to enter fintech space, you definitely have to consider service providers that already work in this space because you don't have any other alternatives. Now, if you're a big company at this point of time, you already can afford to build something in-house, and there are usually a couple main reasons for that. So maybe you already have experienced team and you have all the expertise that is required in order to build things you want to build. In this case, yes, you can afford it. Another thing, if you already have established business and you have and you're already pumping in significant volumes through your software. In this case, probably building your own solution will be cheaper than buying third-party solutions simply because of those volumes. Or maybe signing contract with third-party service provider is contradicting to your business strategy. And yes, building a new fintech vertical inside of your company will be expensive, but you have to make this choice in order to make your long-term strategy successful. If you're not a big business, you don't have any strategic goals, my suggestion will be to consider third-party service providers for your fintech vertical. But yes, it creates vendor lock, but the alternative, you can be left away out of the fintech market because, as I said before, the entry ticket is extremely expensive.
And going back as well to your point of requiring very rigorous backup capabilities, I'm wondering what are the orders of magnitude in terms of the size of the data that you're dealing with and some of the ways that you have to think about managing backups, and in particular being able to maybe use backup strategies that allow for just using compressed deltas as opposed to having to do multiple full copies of the data.
So transactional data doesn't take lots of space because we're just talking about numbers and very short strings of text. There is no problem with transactional data, and usually fintech companies not processing payments directly. Usually there is a second copy of information that is always available on the side of the payment provider. That's easy part. Now we're talking about the fun part, financial documents. Well, financial documents, they have significant sizes. Typical invoice could have a size of 1 megabyte, well, an average. And some companies, they having like a multi-page long contracts, and the size of those documents can be up to like a half gigabyte, and obviously you have to take care about that. And that's a place when we have to rely heavily on a cloud infrastructure, and S3 storage is here to save the day, obviously, but we cannot give direct access to the buckets stored inside of S3. So usually we have to stored encrypted binary data inside of S3, and we have to stream data from those buckets to our customers. Now, talking about backups, basically we created not very sophisticated, but at the same time reliable system of that stores files in S3. Basically, using cross-regional replications of AWS, obviously. Also, we're making secure backups via other AWS services like AWS Glacier, which is a perfect solution for this kind of things. But we have to make sure that those binary files, they're encrypted and they're not available outside of our private network. If our customers want to get access to binary data, we have to stream and decrypt these files on the fly directly to our customers.
Data lakes are notoriously complex. For data engineers who battle to build and scale high-quality data workflows on the data lake, Starburst powers petabyte-scale SQL analytics fast, at a fraction of the cost of traditional methods, so that you can meet all of your data needs, ranging from AI to data applications to complete analytics. Trusted by teams of all sizes, including Comcast and DoorDash, Starburst is a data lake analytics platform that delivers the adaptability and flexibility a lakehouse ecosystem promises. And Starburst does all of this on an open architecture, with first-class support for Apache Iceberg, Delta Lake, and Hoodie, so you always maintain ownership of your data. Want to see Starburst in action? Go to dataengineeringpodcast.com/starburst and get $500 in credits to try Starburst Galaxy today, the easiest and fastest way to get started using Trino. In terms of the application of data in the fintech sector, they have been one of the longest users of machine learning in the context of things like fraud detection, particularly in banking contexts. And I'm wondering, what are some of the primary ways that you're seeing ML being applied in the fintech sector, and some of the ways that those ML requirements as far as training and serving influence the architectural design and the capabilities of data platforms for those types of applications?
Well, obviously, after OpenAI released ChatGPT, everyone started get worried about their future in the business. And I had some conversations with our product managers and other C-level managers. And I wasn't really worried at all because, from my perspective, this rise of large linguistic models and other AI technologies won't change fintech industry at all. So I have a few reasons for that. First of all, machine learning is already in fintech for at least couple of decades, and fraud prevention, that's one story. But you also machine learning algorithms are widely used for credit scoring or for risk analysis. These algorithms are quite old, and they were here even before deep learning and large neural nets. So banks using those algorithms already for decades. And plus, if we're talking about transactional data, as I mentioned before, this data is extremely well structured. So we don't have to run all this sophisticated algorithms on financial data, because we simply can do math. So modern machine learning won't change that much, because pretty much everything was done in this space before. Now, the big thing, OCR, optical character recognition. As I said before, we have to deal with documents that are coming on paper, and we have to deal with photos of receipts, and it's pretty annoying. And deep learning and other machine learning algorithms, they definitely revolutionize that space, because the quality of OCR processing increased dramatically. And if you remember, like 10 years ago, there was a thing called Tesseract, and the quality of optical characters recognition was pretty poor. The accuracy was pretty low. So you could expect, like back in the day, something around 40-50%. Now with a AWS Textract, we can have accuracy up to 95-97% on some documents. So pretty much all the text is getting recognized properly, and also the quality of pre-processing increased dramatically. So if you have a photo taken, if you have a photo of receipt that was taken in the dark with flashlight and with the wrong angle, the tech extract will still be able to recognize and extract data from that photo. So OCR definitely reshaped the preparatory accounting space and the way SMEs working with financial data and financial documents right now. Another thing that is definitely affected by a rise of modern machine learning technology, I'm talking about large linguistic models. If you're a fintech company, normally you have one customer support officer, one customer support engineer per 1,000 customers. And if all this customers will decide to write to that person at once, you're basically going to have problems because usually the customer support team is not designed to handle big volumes, and that's what typically happens when you have major incidents in banking infrastructure. People immediately start texting and calling you, and your customer support center is not able to handle this request. So large linguistic models decrease the operational cost for customer support. And help desk team is one of the biggest drivers of the expenses if you run a fintech company. So LLMs are potentially able to completely eliminate, well, not potentially completely eliminate, but significantly reduce the size of the support team. It will be possible to have, let's say, one agent serving 10,000 people and 20,000 people, and it's something that definitely will improve over the time, and we have big plans for that.
Another major challenge in all data applications and data platforms, but in particular with fintech because of the regulatory burdens, is that of data governance. And I'm wondering, what are some of the ways that you're approaching that problem of data governance and ensuring that you have appropriate visibility and access control and segmentation of data access, and some of the organizational and policy aspects that you've had to invest in to be able to ensure that you're doing data governance in a way that is compliant and fulfills the regulatory needs?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, data access is extremely limited, and only a few trained people can get access to this. Also, every team and every vertical in our company, they have separate database clusters, so they can see only the data of their users, and only few people in the company can have access to all databases in our company, while including me and maybe engineering manager and a couple DevOps engineers. Now, obviously, we have to deal with data analysis, and we have to give access to the data to analysts and managers. So we have to offload all the information from database to data warehouse. And before we send data to the data warehouse, we have to remove or mask or anonymize critical parts of information. So basically, analysts and managers, they still can analyze data without the risk to accidentally leak some confidential information on the site. Also, all the configuration files on all the operations, all database clusters, they're recorded in repositories. So we're a GitOps company, and in order to do something with production or even staging data, you have to write your database queries in repository. Somebody is going to review them, and if the code is reviewed, then your database queries can be executed. So basically, code reviews are mandatory, especially for infrastructure changes, and everything should be recorded. That's the first. That's maybe the first thing. And we, by the law, we must store data for 5 to 10 years, and we have data retention policies defined and maintained on a permanent basis, so people are aware that they cannot delete any financial documents whatsoever. If even if they see the company that is not touching the data already for a couple of years, and they say, okay, well, they have like a 1 billion of invoices there, maybe we can delete something. They know they cannot, because maybe tomorrow someone will come and ask the copy of the invoice that was issued like 4 years ago, and oops, we're gonna have problems if this data will get deleted. And so that's three major things. Access is restricted. Everything we need to do in terms of infrastructure and data management should be recorded and reviewed, and all data records should be stored for years.
Another aspect of that governance challenge is also on the side of discovery, because it's hard to do anything with the data if you don't know that you have it. And then once somebody finds a particular data set that they want to work with, I'm wondering what the process looks like for being able to request and gain access to that data, and some of the audit controls that you have around how to ensure that they are doing what they say they were going to do, and that the access is managed appropriately.
There is a bureaucracy, and we have to enforce that bureaucracy on employees because of the certifications and compliance. So if you need to get access to data, you have to explain to DevOps team and to me why do you need this, and what exactly do you want to get from the database. And you have to also specify the time span you want to have access to. Maybe you have to specify IDs of the customers, of users you want to see in a database. And after that, and after me and the engineering manager and DevOps team came up with a conclusion that yes, you indeed can have access to that data. I will manually execute the database queries and prepare the dump and hand this over to one of the engineers or analysts. Obviously, all the critical information will be removed from that dump. So let's say invoice, IDs of the bank accounts or personal IDs will be completely removed. If the data is needed on a permanent basis, so for instance, we work on a new data model, then we have to prepare something for the Snowflake. So we have to create a data export process that will be stripping off all the critical information and automatically pouring this data to Snowflake. But before we're doing this, we have to understand that we'll be dealing with some portions of data on a permanent basis. Otherwise, we just do a manual dump and give it to engineer, making sure that there is no critical data inside of this.
In your work in this space and working with customers to enable them to build financial applications, what are some of the most interesting or innovative or unexpected approaches that you've seen to data management in this fintech sector?
In fintech sector in general, I was surprised that some companies, they're building quite sophisticated proxies for database servers, and those proxies, they're able to identify on the fly that there are credit card numbers stored in database, and those proxies will automatically remove all the critical information right from your database queries. So you won't be able to get the data access to that data whatsoever, and you don't have to write any configuration files. So obviously there are proxy servers when you write in this config saying, okay, there is a column called card number, please remove all the data or all the digits from there and just leave 4 last digits. But you have to configure this rules manually, and it's extremely annoying. So I was surprised to see that machine learning can identify quite well all the patterns in database columns, and everything will be stripped away on the fly. That's a game changer, because preparing data for analytics or for product managers is extremely annoying process, but we have to deal with this anyways.
And in your own experience of working in this space and building a company focused on fintech, what are some of the most interesting or unexpected or challenging lessons that you've learned in the process?
Definitely had a challenge this year. It's not directly related to fintech, but it's related to API first business, and we're API first company. So it was surprising for me that dealing with multiple API versions on a massive scale is pretty much tough because we not only have to maintain multiple versions of APIs, but we also have different versions of data created via different API calls. And managing all these things inside of application was indeed very challenging. So we identified three major strategies, and first of all, we were thinking about storing and managing data in different Kubernetes clusters with different versions of APIs. But obviously, it's pretty tough approach because we have to maintain different branches of the code, and whenever we need to patch one cluster, you have to cherry pick your commits from the repository and have to somehow patch other clusters too. But at the same time, you're still going to end up with multiple versions of data created from multiple clusters inside the database, which is nightmare. There is a second approach that is commonly used in software companies. You just create little folders with different versions of your code. So let's say you have version 1 and now you have to create version 2. So you basically copy paste version 1 to folder called version 2, make changes there. But this code works with the same database, but at the same time, well, it looks like a very simple approach, but if you're dealing with like a 10, 15 different versions of APIs and of data, that's extremely challenging. And we're an API first company and we're dealing with Fintech. So we have our customers using our APIs for years. So we just simply cannot kill old versions because there is always company using this, and we just cannot send them a letter saying, yes, we're going to switch off this version completely starting from January 1st. Well, please switch. Well, we can't because they pay money for us. So we have to support this multiple versions. And that was the approach we initially took. So we created multiple folders and we had all these problems. And one of the engineers, he created a framework for API versioning. And the philosophy behind this solution is quite simple. So we always have last version of data available in database and last version of the business logic. Now, if we have to serve data to someone who is using previous versions of APIs, this framework basically downgrades the data representation to the requested version. So let's say we have 5 versions in total. So last version is version number 5. So all data in database and all the data warehouse is stored according to V5 specifications. But if we have customer using V4, then we basically downgrade the V5 back to V4. It's like a database migration process, but done backwards. And turned out that it's extremely efficient process. The number of lines of code dropped dramatically. We removed like hundreds and thousands of lines of code that was so hard to maintain. We ended up with this solution. So we always store the latest version of data in our data system, designed according to the latest version of tech specs we have. And we just migrate all the data representations backwards to the requested version.
API versioning is a hard challenge no matter what space you're in, but having to maintain it for a indeterminate amount of time definitely adds a significant amount of burden and probably substantial amount of technical debt to ensure that you're able to maintain that backwards compatibility.
Sure.
Yeah. That's definitely a very interesting solution that you found to that, being able to maintain the latest representation of the data, but then being able to translate it backwards. So that's interesting. And so you mentioned that you keep the latest in the prior version. Do you have to, because of the fact that you have people using some indeterminate version of the API for in perpetuity, do you have to maintain the multiple versions and multiple downgrade steps for a particular data representation?
Basically, it's pretty hard to jump from V5 back to V1. So probably it's a good option to do a couple of migrations in the middle, and that also is very helpful when you're doing debugging because you can see all these changes between different versions. Yes, it's still pretty annoying process because you have to migrate data representations.
And As you continue to build and iterate on the product that you're building at Monite and invest in this fintech sector and enabling other businesses to build financial applications on top of your platform, what are some of the things you have planned for the near to medium term as far as your data capabilities or your platform architecture at Monite, or some of the problems and projects you're excited to dig into?
We have more like a long-term strategic plan because we're dealing with quite a lot of transaction information coming from SMEs in different countries. We came up with our ultimate goal and with our North Star. We're eventually planning to kill all financial documents and OCR in fintech space, because there is a Swift protocol for financial transactions made between different banks, and before that, people use telegraph in order to make money transfers. But right now, we live in the 21st century, and people still print invoices on paper and deliver those invoices to each other via physical mail. And our plan is to completely kill that industry. Obviously, it's kind of ambitious, but we're gonna take baby steps toward that goal, and probably it's gonna take 5 years at least. But the idea is to completely kill all these PDF documents, scans, and replace them with machine-readable messages. And these messages should have very strict structure inside. So instead of OCRing your PDF files, you'll get access to all your financial records instantly, and you have to manually adjust and verify your financial records. I guess it's something that will probably eliminate thousands of the jobs, because someone still has to scan and print these papers and deliver. But I guess it's a good thing to do because, well, yes, 21st century, we definitely can do better than a bunch of PDL files and paper envelopes developed by a mailman. That's North Star. But on the way to that goal, we're gonna keep expanding in different markets. It's a pretty challenging process because we're an infrastructure company and we have spikes of traffic. So when we onboard new customer, we may start serving, let's say, 100K new users overnight. And usually when you're doing B2C software, you don't see this kind of traffic spikes quite often. Usually you see a number of users gradually increasing over time. But if you're a platform and your customer just start onboarding their users to infrastructure, then yes, there are spikes. And dealing with those spikes in something that's it's pretty hard process, because yes, we have plans for everything. We have all the infrastructure challenges modeled, and we prepared for everything. But reality is, however, a bit different. And yes, that's a long process of our system evolution towards that goal.
Are there any other aspects of the work that you're doing at Monite or the overall problem space of data management in a fintech context that we didn't discuss yet that you would like to cover before we close out the show?
Yeah, there is one interesting topic. So currently, pretty much all governments across the globe, they're trying to introduce local standards for financial documents, and it seems like a nightmare, because even in the European Union now we have Italian invoicing standard, Portuguese invoicing standard, we have German standard for financial documentation, and basically we have this zoo of data formats and standards, and some of the standards are not even have an explanation in English how it works. So if you want to get connected with Italian invoicing, you have to circle through 200 or 300 page long document written in Italian language explaining how this e-invoicing works, and after you have to give a call to Italian authorities and say, look, like we have a plan to get connected with your document exchange gateway. So basically, that's a big nightmare that is coming upon our heads, and I hope, like in the 5 and 10 years, people will abandon this idea, because right now it just multiplies the problems. And instead of just dealing with PDF files and financial records coming from different banking systems, we now have to deal with hundreds of different XMLs, JSONs, or binary formats, and it's just a very big challenge.
Yeah. Is there at least any sort of common subset of information across those standards, or is it every country has decided on their own bespoke format that they are forcing people to comply with, and you have to do a specific implementation for each one?
So there is no definite single standard across different countries, and I guess governments don't have any intentions even to start discussing these topics, because everyone says that, okay, well, it's time to introduce our own standard and get some extra money from the taxpayers, because invoicing will give us better access to data and hence better access to taxes. So everybody's excited by excited by the fact they can get extra money from the taxpayers, but nobody is thinking about the consequences. So that's a problem.
All right. Well, for anybody who wants to get in touch with you and follow along with the work that you and your team are doing, I'll have you add your preferred contact information to the show notes. And as the final question, I'd like to get your perspective on what you see as being the biggest gap in the tooling or technology that's available for data management today.
Well, definitely in the fintech space, we have to build manually all this data management solution. As I said before, there are lots of restrictions. There are lots of rules that are enforced by local laws and regulations, and that will be absolutely awesome to see a database or data storage solution that will take care about all these things, because roughly saying, we spend like a 25% of our tech team budget on dealing with this, and having a database that is already prepared to face all these fintech challenges and that is already compliant with all these laws and regulations, that will be a game changer. I guess it's not hard to build this technology from technical perspective, but from the compliance perspective, it's a complete nightmare. And probably in order to achieve that, someone needs to have like 10 skilled software engineers and 100 compliance managers and lawyers and product managers in order just to explain how it's supposed to work. But I hope someone will create that solution in the future, because it's just so painful to deal with all these things manually.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time today to join me and share your experience and perspectives on data management in fintech and the work that you're doing at Monite. It's definitely a very interesting and important problem domain, so I appreciate all of the time and energy that you and your team are putting into that, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to check out our other shows, Podcast.init, which covers the Python language, its community, and the innovative ways it is being used, and the Machine Learning Podcast, which helps you go from idea to production with machine learning. Visit the site at dataengineeringpodcast.com to subscribe to the show, sign up for the mailing list, and read the show notes. And if you've learned something or tried out a project from the show, then tell us about it. Email hosts at dataengineeringpodcast.com with your story. And to help other people find the show, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends and coworkers.